Hello and welcome to another update video on Bitcoin. In this video, I wanted to take another moment to explain the broader market structure, to explain to you when a bear market can be confirmed, because I get a lot of questions. I answered that question already in yesterday's video, but I think repetition is very important, and I want everybody to understand these indicators or signals on the price chart. So we'll take a look at that. I will also tell you when I will possibly buy, sell next. So we can talk about that as well. So stay tuned. And then I want to show you some indicators which are really important that give us some insights about where we are currently from a also sentiment and psychological point of view. Something that we are observing in addition to Elliott Wave. Now, Elliott Wave is obviously the leading indicator for us, the model we use. But obviously, it can be helpful to use additional indicators like seasonalities. We talked about that quite a few times in recent videos. But also other indicators on-chain. So we're going to take a look at those. That should give you a really good picture of what's going on currently on the Bitcoin chart. And I want to answer the questions, what would confirm a bear market and when will actually I buy and sell? At least from what I can see right now. I can't make any promises because when we get to these points, maybe the chart isn't giving me what I want to see overall, right? So that's different, but I just tell you what my thoughts are based on what I see right now in the chart. Now, I think it's important to understand that the market here hasn't given us any, there's absolutely no signal that we have topped in this bull market, right? In fact, Elliott Wave gives us a full wave count to the upside. Yeah, I talked about that many, many times. We have a 5-wave move up from the 2022 low. It is actually a full wave count, but it doesn't mean that the bull market is over. Absolutely not. It just means that if we now correct and go, let's say, in a bear market or a large correction, Bitcoin has fulfilled its duties, formed a full 5-wave move up, and that is a good, it's just a solid structure and will help us to let's say, confirm further and validate the larger time frame assumption that we are in a larger time frame bullish trend for Bitcoin. This here is nothing strange. If we now correct, it wouldn't be unusual. In fact, Elliott Wave is one of the only indicators that tell us that, let's say, we could have formed the top. But we could have formed the top isn't really what we are looking for here. We are here for the signals that we should have formed the top, and none of them is flagging. So a quick educational moment, a full wave count to the upside does not confirm a major top. We have to look at other aspects as well. It's not as easy as that. That's something that many beginners, when they use Elliott Wave or start with Elliott Wave, misunderstand. They think we have a full wave count, we have to get a reversal. You really only get a reversal if there's a 5-wave move down that's large enough, and a confirmation for that, a 5-wave move down that's large enough that breaks support, and indicates a trend shift to the downside. Because as long as the larger trend is still running, a 5-wave move up is bullish, right? This is also from the April low, a 5-wave move up. It's bullish. So we're watching for a corrective pullback for higher prices. But obviously, when we look at the macro and the bigger picture, we have to at least be cautious because we all know that the bull market could have topped. In fact, Elliott Wave is, in my view, the only indicator that has convinced me that we could have formed the top, because none of the other classical top indicators for Bitcoin and even seasonalities don't really suggest that we should have topped already, right? Talked about that many, many times. So, however, Elliott Wave is there to give us the framework. So people ask, okay, if we have a full wave count, we should at least know what would confirm that a top is in. So, first of all, I want to talk about what would confirm the bull market top for me. When can I confirm when a bear market? Like a bit of a repetition, but it's important because people miss things, and I want everybody to get the message. Before we start, very clearly, that is not my view. My view is not that we have topped. I would need to see signals for that. I would still very much prefer another high, and I still see 2 bullish scenarios, either from here, this region, and that could include another dip, no problem, then a recovery to all-time highs from a wave 4 low to a wave 5 high to 130K and above. Or after a broader A, B, C structure in a 1-2 setup in the blue scenario, a rally after a larger 3-wave move down. You see, 3 waves down can still happen, even on a larger degree, and it wouldn't be bearish. Okay? So they are the 2 bullish scenarios that I still see. However, the white scenario for one more high in a 4-5 pattern, yeah, I won't look for this anymore if we get this broader correction first. Then the only one I probably can see is a 1-2 setup, which is a bit more speculative, because that means when that happens, it's already more speculative that we get another high, okay? Now we have 2 more bullish scenarios. Okay, so what are the signals for a bear market? First one would be further downside and a break below the 55-week EMA. A 55-week EMA break itself isn't bearish. It happened before in April this year. That's when people started to confirm the bear market. Also here in August last year. But that alone is not enough. That alone is not enough to confirm a bear market. We would need to get at least 1, possibly 2 weekly closes below that level to confirm a bear market. All right? So, we're too far out. That's not what we want to see for a confirmation. Just a brief week or so. We need a weekly close. We need 2 weekly closes. Yeah, 1 or 2. One is already a first warning. Right, that would be my first warning. A break below the 55-week EMA and a close below it. If we then start to see a corrective bounce, a 3-wave move up, and a rejection from resistance, second warning, all right? And if we then come down and break below the 78.6 retracement, third warning. Third warning, and this is a strong confirmation already, but the real confirmation comes with a break below the April low. So you have warning 1, warning 2, warning 3, and the full confirmation comes with a break below the April low. So those are the warning stages plus confirmation for bear market. We have none of them at this stage. And you can see that in the very short term, Bitcoin is now in an area from where a larger bounce could occur. A larger bounce can occur from the RSI. Looking at the RSI, the relative strength index, that can happen at any time here. Yeah, a larger bounce. Because we're now in the area where that happened before in recent months. At the same time, there is still room all the way down to the 55-week EMA around 98.5K and all the way down to 30. And this takes us to the what I wanted to talk about buying. I will probably add positions for Bitcoin once we break below or get close to the 30 level on the RSI. I'll probably buy then. We talked about that many times back in February as well. March, it was a good bottoming signal. Yeah, so I'll probably do that again when that happens. But I also said I'll be careful with selling my BTC because, my view is we're coming into a cycle of hard assets, and money is losing value. So my view is hard assets are going to be the winner in the coming cycles. So in terms of selling, if we see further downside, if we see a corrective bounce into resistance, maybe I'll exit a little bit, reduce positions, thin out my portfolio a little bit. So maybe here if we see a rejection, or if we go to a new all-time high, those are the 2 spots when I will consider to sell some BTC. Yeah. In addition to that, that means in the short term, there could be a bounce now, of course, yeah, because we are entering that support zone on the daily, I'm not trying to, call for a low here yet. It's not clear yet, but I'm just saying we could get a bounce. If we look at the 4-hour time frame and look at the RSI, which we are often looking at together, we do have, we do have a bullish divergence. So you see that actually, that the price from the lower low and the RSI here from the higher low on the 4-hour time frame. But the upside momentum is very, very weak. So as long as the bounce is corrective in nature, as I said, there's absolutely no sign that a meaningful low has formed and we are moving up to new highs. But that means in the short term, I'd rather watch for a bounce, maybe after a little bit more downside. and then there is a resistance area which we will have to adjust based on the last lows whenever we make a new low. But also that we're starting to get oversold. I showed you yesterday already the fear, the extreme greed. No, sorry, the extreme fear value on the fear and greed index. Yeah, I posted that yesterday. If you're not following us yet on X, make sure you do. But my view is if we go down further for Bitcoin, I mean, it might get to 10 to 15 extreme fear. That's actually where we want it to be. That's where in this bull cycle there have been swing lows that formed. Yeah, maybe not immediately. Maybe we spend a little bit of time in this area hovering around 100K, but that can lead to an oversold reading of the RSI. So I wanted to show you 3 more indicators that we also use regularly. They are also provided by our research partner Bitcoin Magazine Pro, and at the end I'll tell you what that means. We have here, the first one is the short-term holder realized price. I'll zoom in a bit. I'll zoom in a bit even more. So let me also open from March, from the March lows. Yeah, this gives us a good indicator here. So basically it shows at which price the short-term market participants have bought their Bitcoin on average. So those who entered within the last, let's say, roughly 5 months. I think it's 155 days. So when the price now rises above this orange line, it happened before many times, yeah, usually after a dip, then, so when the market rises above this line, then it means they're in profit, right? So if it goes below the line, it means there's some selling pressure that's coming in. So when the price is above the line, it means that the majority of these people who bought Bitcoin in the last 5 months are sitting in profit. That strengthens confidence. Yeah, the mood is good, and corrections are bought. Or, it also creates a bit of FOMO potentially, right? For those who didn't enter. But as soon as the price falls below that line, the game changes a bit. Then most of the short-term buyers are in a loss. And that's exactly where emotional pressure begins, especially when the price structure is still bullish, but people are already feeling the pressure. So you can probably feel it yourselves right now. So right now we have, a bad mood in the market. People start doubting, they start selling, they just want to get out. And that's exactly what we want, what we also represent with Elliott Wave. Yeah? What also shows up in the fear and greed index. And historically, that was often the point in bull markets when the weak hands capitulated before the market stabilized again and turned around. So we are exactly at that point now. Okay, maybe not quite there yet. Yeah, maybe it has to fall a little bit lower. As I showed you, there's still room, right? Even in a bullish scenario. So around about 98K is sort of the next larger support cluster. But we're now at the point where the price has fallen slightly below the orange line. And that indicates that we are again in the phase of psychological stress, a zone where panic can rise, but long term also where opportunities emerge. So you can see it yourselves, just what happened here in March, April, for example. It's very, very similar. I also mentioned it back then in our member area. I don't know if I showed it here on YouTube, but back in March, I sent out an update where I pointed out exactly this system, you could say, that we were in a region where a bottom was likely to form. And again, it's not an indicator that tells us exactly here the low forms, but I think it helped many people back then. So I also want to take a look at the next one, which is the SOPR, the spent output profit ratio. And what does it show? It measures whether the coins that are actually being moved on the network are being sold at a profit or at a loss. So a value above 0, or let's say, above this 0 line here, means that the majority sells at a profit. That is typical for uptrends, very important, and typical for uptrends, the majority sells in profit. A value below 1 means that coins are sold at a loss, and that usually happens when sentiment turns, and people capitulate. So the current value shows exactly that. I'll zoom in a bit. We'll start to see, or I actually include the April lows as well. Now you see it here. This is April, March, and we're now here obviously in October. Slowly, the first coins appear that are being sold at a loss, which matches the first indicator I just showed you. It's not a real capitulation chart, I would say, but you can already see loss realization. And the interesting thing is that such phases, especially in bull markets, they don't last long. So when the pressure eases, the market stabilizes, the SOPR rises again, and that in the past often marked the beginning of a new upward phase. So we had a similar situation in April, yeah, here, yeah. Back then, some people already wanted to find their exit at the start of the next rally, I guess, and that wasn't the smartest thing, right? I'm just saying what happened historically. So they thought they'd get a better price and then sold right before the rally started in April. That was kind of the second half of April. So again, we're now in exactly the same kind of area where, in terms of market sentiment, people are starting to feel pressure. And that's exactly what we need, especially when, as I said, the structure is still intact. In a bear market, of course, it doesn't work like that, right? But in a bear market, that would obviously be bearish. But as I already explained, structurally, we still have no confirmation at the moment for now that a bear market has begun. And the next one, the third one, is the AASI, the Active Address Sentiment Indicator, and that one shows how strongly the price movement. The black line is hold on, I thought there used to be yeah, the black line is obviously the price, yeah, but we're just gonna move in a little bit, and I want to keep it simple. We have two bands. Yeah, the lower band is the green band. Here, you might not see it that well, but the price, for example, or the price change, let me zoom in a bit. The price change, yeah, and also that active address change, which is kind of just a metric for the network activity, yeah. Whenever that broke below, so we had the same situation also here in March, April, it was actually an indicator, right? It was an indicator that while overall the network activity, you see it stay stable, the price just dropped more than, the fundamental aspect, you could say. The network activity would actually kind of confirm, okay? So the price kind of became undervalued, you could say, below the lower band, and we've now just dropped below the lower band. And obviously, you know what happened in April, right? The price then started to rally. So we don't have that all the time. I mean, since April, we've stayed within the band. We've now dropped below the band again. And that is, it's not very clear here, but it is what it is. You can't see it very well, but we've just dropped below the lower band, okay? So it's again another indicator that I'm watching. Yeah, if that orange line, which is a 28-day price change in percent, drops below the lower band, it can be, yeah, I don't want to say it's a buy indicator, but all of that indicates where we are from a sentiment point of view. I put it all together. It gives a clear picture, right? We see psychological stress among short-term market participants, and you will feel it yourselves. It's not full capitulation, but some are already realizing losses. And at the same time, we see a stable network activity. Also, from an Elliott Wave point of view, still no confirmation that a bear market has started. And we're also soon entering oversold areas again. So this combination appeared before in this cycle, near the end of corrections, not at the beginning. So it's not a picture that tells us, we go up immediately, but it's an environment where the mood cleanses, where the impatient ones leave the market and the patient ones start building positions. So Bitcoin sometimes just washes out the tourists. That's how I see it and how it is. And such phases usually form the basis for the next bounce or the next move up. That's exactly why it's worth keeping an eye at least on these indicators. So I hope that gives you a really good idea of what's currently going on the Bitcoin chart. It gives you a good idea from a sentiment point of view, Elliott Wave, the next resistances, support levels to watch in the coming weeks, as well as some on-chain indicators. That's the update. Hope you enjoyed the update. Make sure you subscribe if you appreciate the daily analysis on this channel, or it's nearly daily analysis on this channel. Yeah, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.